Good morning, class. So today we are here with our first lecture for BSc third year, and I'm going to conduct a lectures on paper number 11, that is food and industrial microbiology. So we will start with our first unit, that is food as a substrate for microorganism. Now before going to the topic, we will study about what do you mean by food. Okay, so any material that provides us the nutritive requirement of an organism is called as food. So the food which the organism is given or we eat, it should be nutritionally good, so it should be nutritive, so that is called as food. Now what do you mean by food spoilage? Now undesirable changes in appearance, odor, color or other quality which make the food unsuitable for the consumption is referred as food spoilage. Means this is simple definition that if the food it is difficult to eat, or it is difficult to see, or it is difficult in appearance, so it doesn't show any good appearance, it show any odor, then it is not easy for consumption, and such spoilage is called as food spoilage. Okay, called as food spoilage. Next, first point in your topic, that is food as a substrate for microorganism. Now why it is called as substrate? Because the organism will grow in that food, multiply in that food and may cause suitable spoilage in that food, so it is called as a food as a substrate for microorganism. Now microbial growth, it depends upon two factors. One is the food itself and second is the environmental condition. Now food itself means the pH of the food, moisture content, oxidation reduction potential and nutrient content which may support the growth of organism. And environmental factor includes the temperature, relative humidity, atmosphere in which the food is kept. Now food itself is called as intrinsic factor. So the microbial growth in the food depends upon two factors. One is the intrinsic factor and another is the extrinsic factor. So today we are going to study in detail about the types of intrinsic factor, and second is the types of extrinsic factor. So first intrinsic factor is the pH. As we all know that the range of pH is minimal, maximum and optimal. So these three range are suitable for different organisms to grow. Okay, so pH is the significantly affecting the growth of microorganism. For example, if there is low pH, then it will favor the growth of yeast and mold than that of the other bacteria. Okay, so in the food, the microorganism or microbial interaction also occurs, which may inhibit the growth of undesirable micron. For example, as we know, initially the pickle they have acidic acidic pH. So at this period, lactic acid bacteria they grow and they inhibit the other bacteria such as pectin hydrolyzing and proteolytic organisms. For example, they have given small amount of acid, that is lactic acid bacteria, during pickle fermentation suppress the growth of undesirable pectin hydrolyzing and proteolytic microorganism. So the acidic pH it will favor lactic acid bacteria and inhibit the other alkaline growing organism. Okay, so next factor is the moisture contain, or we can tell as a moisture requirement of the organism, and it is expressed in the form of water availability, that is AW. So the denotation for the water availability is AW, remember it. So water it is absolutely essential for the microbial growth of organism. Now we know that water activity expressed in EW. Now what is this water activity? Now, before going to the water activity, you should know what do you mean by solution and solvent. Okay, if a water it is mixed with sugar or salt, then it is called as solution, and if it is a pure water, then it is called as solvent. Now what is water activity? When we take the ratio, or when we do the division of vapor pressure of solution, means the sugar containing water, means The sugar, they are present at the bottom and water present at the top. Okay, so the vapor pressure of solution divided by vapor pressure of the solvents. So the ratio of this is known as the water availability. Now, if the water availability is more, means the moisture content in the food or in that content is also more, and it will support the growth of organism. So microbial growth in the food, it can be controlled by making water unavailable for in various ways like solute concentration, hydrophilic colloids and water crystallization. Now as we told that if water activity is more, that is moisture requirement is more. If moisture requirement is more, it will maximally support the growth of organism. Now if we want to control the growth of microorganism in the food, then what we have to do, we have to reduce the moisture content of the food. Okay, so how you will reduce? So we can reduce by solute concentration, means what, any sugar or salt containing food, in that we have to increase the level of solutes, for example sugar and salt. Hydrophilic colloids means what, gels. Okay, for example, you know the jams. Okay, so jam, they are also rich in sugar, they are rich in gels, so there the moisture level has been decreased, the chances of growing the microorganism is less. Now water in crystallization, for example ice, it is a water but it is reduced to a solid phase, so that is called as water in crystallization. So this is the intrinsic factor which may support the growth of organism and may cause the spoilage of food. Next factor is the oxidation reduction potential, or it is also called as OR potential. Now what is this? Reducing and oxidizing power of the food itself affects the type of organism in the food. On the basis of the oxygen requirement, microorganisms are classified as. Okay, now if the organism or the food, it contains the more oxygen, or the free oxygen is present, then the organism will grow, and that organism are called as strict aerobes or obligate aerobes. These factors you all know, these are basic. Now what is obligate anaerobes? Which do not require oxygen, which is completely grow in the anaerobic condition. And what is facultative? Which may grow in either aerobically or anaerobically. Next, this oxidation potential, it is denoted by a symbol or written as EH, and the measurement of oxidation reduction potential of food is determined in the millivolt. Remember this point, that it is written as EH and it is measured in terms of millivolts. Now a substrate or a food, if it is having high positive oxidation reduction potential, then if it is highly oxidized, if suppose the food, it is highly oxidized, then it will have positive oxidation reduction potential, and if it is reduced, then it will have negative oxidation reduction potential. So next factor is the nutritive content of the food. Now if a food, it contains carbohydrates, then it will act as a source of energy for the growth of organism. Now other components present in the food are esters, alcohols, peptides, which also acts as a energy source. Now some food or some organism, they have the ability to utilize the nitrogenous compound in the food as a source of nitrogen. For example, food containing amino acid, urea, peptides. Okay, so these substances, they act as a nitrogen source, and carbohydrate, ester, alcohol, peptides act as a energy source. So if these components are present in the high amount in the food, then it will also allow the growth of organism and may lead further spoilage. Now some organisms, they are unable to synthesize the vitamins, so these vitamins or these organisms, they take the vitamins from the food like meat, egg white. Okay, egg white, it contains biotin and avidin. Next intrinsic factor which may cause spoilage of food or which may not cause the spoilage of food, some inhibitory substances, means what, some lactanin present in fresh milk, lysine present in egg white, benzoic acid, these are the intrinsic factors. Other biological structure, for example fish, it contains scales, Egg, it contains shell. Nut, it contains shells. Okay, skin of the poultry. These are the extrinsic biological structure itself which may not allow the growth of organism. So we have studied some intrinsic factor today. First was pH, next is moisture requirement, next is oxidation reduction potential, nutritive content of food, inhibitory substances, and biological structure. So these are the intrinsic factor on which the growth of organism is dependent. Next factor is the extrinsic factor. Now, the very important extrinsic factor is the temperature and relative humidity, which is determining whether the food will spoil or not. Other is atmosphere in which the food is stored, that also determines whether the food is going to spoil or not. Okay, so these were some factors on which the growth of organism is dependent. So in this lecture we have studied the basic first point, that is food as a substrate for microorganism. In next lecture we are going to study about the food poisoning, food infection, and some examples related to food poisoning and related to food infection.